Hey guys, Zen here, and today I'm back. This has been a very busy and productive time for me personally, but I'm back, and now is a great time to subscribe and get ready for daily content moving forward. Operation Phantom Sight is almost here, and so I wanted to go over everything that's happened recently, and of course supply you guys with some thoughts. So if you're ready, let's do this. First up, I want to talk about the most recent update to the TTS. A lot of you guys are aware by now, and judging by my notifications, we definitely need to talk about this. So we can start things off with my main, Kaid. Ubisoft will be removing his barbed wire and replacing it with C4. Now, to be honest, for me, this is some of the worst news I've heard since the removal of ACOG from both Bandit and Jaeger. Yes, guys, it's that serious. Admittedly, there is a large portion of the community that actually sees this as a buff, and to some extent, I can see why they feel that way. The C4 is a very powerful secondary gadget on its own. It has very high killing potential, especially from a floor below the objective in the right situations, and if you need to, it can open up the map in a pinch. So again, it's not like this is necessarily a bad secondary gadget, but I just don't see its use specifically when it pertains to Kaid. Since the beginning, I've always used his barbed wire to set up a trap with the Electroclaw. It's honestly one of, if not the best trap in the game, because the only way the attackers can really deal with it is by using a frag grenade or some kind of impact to knock it out without taking any damage. Otherwise, it's really challenging to deal with, and also a hard counter to drones, and even more specifically, Twitch's drone. It really was Kaid's secret sauce and allowed him to be very creative with how he set up on site and used his Electroclaw. Sure, you could always use him to electrify walls and hatches, that will always be an option, but if your team opted for a bandit or mute, the barbed wire trap made his pick more valuable, and that gameplay loop isn't possible without the help of another operator at this point. Opinions and perspectives aside, the barbed wire clearly has more synergy with his gadget than a C4. Imagine doing the exact opposite to an operator like Valkyrie by taking her C4 away and giving her barbed wire. It just wouldn't have that same effect, and she would honestly be played completely differently than she is today. So I don't want to cry about this for too long. We do have to keep this video moving, but those are just some of my early thoughts on this change to an operator I currently made. Ubisoft has been chipping away at Kaid since the Wind Bastion test server, and I thought after his most recent buff to the AUG, he was feeling great and everything kind of lined up. But now with this change in the works, I want to know your initial thoughts. Do you see this change to Kaid to be a buff or a nerf? Or maybe a little of both? Let me know down below. Pulse is another operator that'll be seeing a small change with Phantom Sight. They've decreased the swap time from cardiac sensor to weapon so that now he can act on his intel a little faster. Now, there are some in the community that believe this to be a little bit too much for Pulse. Being able to swap over to his weapon faster means that the attackers have less time to move and allows Pulse to be more accurate after reading the heartbeat. This is a very delicate balance, but because it's only been changed by about half a second, it's not super significant, and I think makes Pulse a little bit more comfortable to use. In today's meta, which is dominated by traps and camera feeds, Pulse is underwhelming. He's nowhere near the pick rate of Legion or Valkyrie, and if you're not a master at his 1-2 punch C4 trick, there's not a ton of reasons to choose him. The backbone of this operator is his ability to get kills using the intel from his gadget, the cardiac sensor, and this change only makes that a little bit easier to do and will hopefully promote more Pulse, so I'm for it. Finally, there's Frost. With Phantom Sight, her traps will have less health and will require less bullets to take out as a result. So this came as a bit of a surprise to probably most people in the community because Frost, although amazing, isn't super flashy, and I think people definitely opt for Legion in most cases. But of course, Frost has one of the highest win rates of any defender for a while now, and it's possible Ubisoft is looking to dial that back a bit. I think her win rate is as high as it is because on the objectives where she's useful, she's picked, and in most cases will force the attackers to deal with the mats. But on sites where there just aren't a lot of windows or spots that camouflage the mats well enough, she just won't be picked. Now, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but on the contrary, Legion is good on basically every site and in every situation because of the nature of his goo gadget. I think Frost's SMG is probably the most underrated gun on defense right now and just hits like a truck, so I'm a little surprised that they didn't tone that down a little bit, but I don't think much will actually change for her with this update. I mean, at this point in the meta, you either know how to deal with a frost trap and can consistently take them out, or she's hiding them really well. I think for those that are already taking them out, this will of course make it a little bit easier to do, but I think the real benefit here comes to DMRs and single shot weapons. This change makes an operator like say Glaz or Dokkaebi able to deal with a frost trap, where even to this day I struggle taking them out with these single shot weapons. But I think if you're someone still struggling with this mechanic of this operator, it's only going to require more time and skill until you get it down. Now, a nerf I think we all saw coming, but Twitch's F2 will be seeing a bit of a recoil nerf in the next season. Twitch has had it rough these past few seasons, and Ubisoft has no plans of slowing that down. Just recently, her shock drone got the addition of red lights like all of the other drones, and it's also a bit louder now. The F2 for a long time has been a contender for the best weapon in the game and remains to be one of the strongest even today. Now, I have been playing a bunch in the test server, and I have had the chance to try Twitch and this change to the F2, and I just haven't felt the difference. The weapon still feels just as accurate and just as smooth as before. I have heard that the first shot is now a little less accurate, and so you could always try a muzzle brake or even a flash hider for that, but ultimately I'd say Twitch is still a monster on attack, and the F2 is still a very viable weapon. But if you've tried it and felt a difference, let us know. I'd love to hear about it. So as far as the test server updates, that's the latest, and those are the big changes. Generally speaking, we have some really solid updates to look forward to, and at the very least, the meta is going to look very different in Phantom Sight, and I'm ready for it. Moving on, we have an update to the exploits in Rainbow Six Siege. We actually haven't talked about this yet, but essentially Clash, the deployable shield, and claymores are not currently playable in the game, as we all know. It's been tough to say the least, and yes, pretty frustrating, but as a community, we've worked around it, so be proud of yourselves, guys. But Ubisoft says they've added fail-safes that won't actually stop the exploits from happening, but will reset those players who do it. So if an IQ is able to go invisible, once it's detected that she was successful in doing so, the failsafe will kick in and she'll be visible again. And the same thing applies with the other exploits. It must be really tough getting a grasp on this kind of thing in a live game like this, and I believe this is the first time Ubisoft has actually removed content from the game to go on and fix it. Usually this kind of thing happens in the test server, and then of course they can get that early feedback and deal with it, but we haven't had access to Clash in nearly a month, and this fix still really isn't ready. So hopefully we can get a patch to the live game that deals with all of this, because not having those claymores in particular has been a challenge, at least for me. But a quick tip is that if you are missing that claymore, try and bring a nomad or a gridlock, because their gadgets can help fill that void. Last up, I wanted to go over some impressions of both Nokk and Warden. So I'm leaning more towards Nokk this season, so we'll begin with her. Now, I feel like I've learned a lot about being an attacker by playing with this operator. You learn just how valuable all of the intel the defenders have is to them, and it's really fun trying to find your way around the map without ever being spotted, because for once, it is possible on attack. Nook's loadout is a little underwhelming. I mean, she doesn't have an ACOG, and also the SMG isn't the best in the meta, but when you tie it all together with her gadget, she's very strong and capable hands. If you're someone who plays a lot of Caveira, this is probably your attacking main, but also if you're ever someone who solo queues, Nokk is a great option for you. Her ability doesn't require a lot of teamwork at all. It really isn't made for that, and so as someone who solo queues a lot, I think she makes a ton of sense. Now, even though the silenced deagle is baking itself into the meta, I personally like the USG unsilenced and play Nokk really aggressively. Moving over to Warden, and there's actually a lot to like about him. Now that there is that counter to flashes and smokes with his glance glasses, you realize how often the attackers are using them. I find myself constantly toggling the glasses, whether that's to defend against flashes, remove the effects of being flash, going head to head with Blitz, which has actually happened a few times at this point, and of course seeing through smoke. He has another one of those abilities that will always have a use and is pretty much always good. There really is no downside to picking this operator outside of maybe picking someone else for different utility. He is yet another 3 armor defender without an ACOG, standing with Clash and our Lord Tachanka there, and it is unfortunate. I think he could have really benefited with one in this loadout. Now, because he lacks that ACOG, I think using the shotgun as a primary is a solid option for Warden, especially because he's that anchor that kind of gets comfortable on sight. I still think the SMG-12 is a little too uncontrollable to main as a medium range weapon, so I think the better option is the P10C pistol, which is very powerful and also accurate with its red dot. Any smoke main knows just how powerful that shotgun is, and with with Warden, it's no different. Plus, there's of course more breach potential, which is always a plus. All in all, they are both really interesting operators, and I think the community is going to have a great time building them into the meta. I think a lot of people currently see Warden as a little bit underwhelming and a little bit weak, but I think when you look at some of the changes that are coming to Glass, as well as the ways that the meta is going to be switching up, Warden is going to be a very powerful operator, even with his somewhat lackluster loadout. But that's the video, guys. I know somewhat overdue, but what can I say? I'm back, guys. Now, I want to hear from you. Are any of your favorite operators being changed in Phantom Sight? And what are your early impressions of Nokk and Warden? Let us know everything in a comment down below. Look, I know I said it already, but now is a great time to subscribe with those notifications if you're new. If you did enjoy the video, drop a like, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. It's been Zen. Hey, I'm out.